Hello, everyone. I hope that you're having a wonderful day. I'm very excited to have all of you be a part of our DonorDrive and Eventage webinar today. Allie, are you on with us?
I am.
Perfect. And the last housekeeping item is that we have a wonderful handout that Allie has created, a PDF of some of the documents that she'll go through with you today. So I highly recommend that you download that great piece of content and that you keep that in mind as you work on some of your upcoming events. Allie Brooks, she's been at Eventage for several years. She's an event production, we call her the event production guru or queen. She was formerly with AFSP. She worked on their signature fundraising event and helped to raise over $8 million for that. Before she got into the nonprofit space, she was a casting and production manager for network TV in Los Angeles. So she's got a great depth of experience there too. We're very excited to have Allie here today. She is focused on recruiting participants, coaching them to fundraising success, and she is definitely the guru when it comes to everything with online fundraising, all about peer-to-peer fundraising strategies, motivating fundraisers. So she's a great resource to have on hand. And then, of course, she's just an amazing event producer as well. So Allie, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you so much. What a wonderful introduction. I hope that everyone, like Joanna said, is having a great day. It's a little gloomy here on the East Coast. I'm in New Jersey, so I'm going to try to bring some sunshine with my presentation and voice. So thank you again for having me today to talk about event production. For me, event production is kind of like a good Broadway show. Just bring it back to the New Jersey, New York area. So you get to create something from paper and make it come to life. But like a good Broadway show, you can't just open the curtains on opening night to start the show. There are months, maybe years of planning to make the show seem flawless and seamless. Meanwhile, there are stagehands in the wings putting out the small fires, making sure the sets are ready and safe, and enforcing some call times. So to make sure that the show is a success. So my challenge for all of you, once this presentation is over, is to kind of rethink your approach to your event planning. So here at Eventage, we have a model we try to follow to make sure that there's no stone unturned. Like Joanna said, my name is Allie Brooks. I'm a manager here at Eventage in charge of peer-to-peer fundraising. I've been producing events for over 10 years, and I think that each day I learn something new. So I truly appreciate the opportunity to share some of my knowledge with you. For today's agenda, we're going to touch on a few key items and save some time for questions and answers. Once again, I'm Allie. So my philosophy on event production is I truly believe that it's an ever-growing, breathing, living thing. And we are all challenged with keeping up with the times to make sure our events don't become stale or unexciting. Regardless if you're producing a 5K walk or a week-long bike ride, you want to avoid event fatigue. So today, we're going to talk about the 4 S's and how they will help you produce a memorable fundraising experience. And then, of course, we'll have a Q&A session. So here we go. So you may be asking yourself, hey, Allie, what are the 4 S's? Well, sit back, relax, and get ready to learn all about them. The first S is for site plans. So this will be your first step in producing an event. You want to have the perfect location for your participants, for your staff, for everyone to come and see your event. The next will be signage. So what your signage plan can do is to make your event come to life. So we'll talk through some signage and some signage options. And the next is your staff and volunteers. They're really the ones that are out there helping you, making sure that everything is in place. And then, of course, the last S is supplies. So this is kind of the most important to make sure that you are able to get your site set up, hang your signage, so on and so forth. So these are the 4 S's. And the first S we are going to talk about today is site plans. So what your site plan does, your site plan tells your story, your play. This is your blueprint for the event day. So when finding a good location for your event, there are a few things to keep in mind. What is the best venue to bring your event to life? As you do your walkthroughs, make sure you are seeing the site at all angles. You want to think like a participant. What do they need? Is there parking? Is there access to a walkway? What will they be looking for once they arrive? Most likely a registration or check-in area. Next, maybe food or to pick up an incentive item. So think about even where you want to place the trash cans. Do you need a hand washing station near the porta potties or just a table with hand sanitizer? So this is why it's important to do multiple walkthroughs, because you never know what could happen on your site. A tree could fall, there could be a muddy area, you never know. So you want to make sure you're not just going there once. As you can see on the site plan, that there is a measurement area and there's also a compass. So this way, no matter who you're sharing your site plan with, they have an understanding of the scale and also which direction is north. That's super helpful. So make sure you do a vendor walkthrough as well as a site contact walkthrough to make sure you are covering all your bases, because you never know what the parameters of your site are. For instance, can you use tent stakes or do you need cement blocks? Are you required to ground any generators or light towers? Can vehicles drive on the grass or do you need to build a plywood road? I mean, let's always hope that the answer is you can drive, because plywood roads can get very, very heavy, especially if they're wet. So know your site. So if there is a problem or anything that does come up, if you have to strike a tent or push a porta potty, you ensure that you have a good backup plan. Now, I can't see any of you, obviously, but I want you to raise your hand if you see what a little bit difference between this site plan and the last site plan. Okay, if you said that this one's in a parking lot rather than a field, then you got it right. So way to go, give yourself a pat on the back. Now, parking lots can create their own challenges and wins. So a win would be that you wouldn't have to worry about a soggy field, but a challenge could be that it could be really hot. If it's a perfectly sunny day, how do you prepare for these changes from venue to venue? The first thing that you want to think about is your flow of traffic. So from parking to the first tent that your participants, volunteers, staff will see. Now remember, this is very early in the morning, so you want your site to be well lit with very few tripping hazards. We all need generators for power, so you want to talk to your power vendor about having some cable ramps just to make sure you keep those cables out of the way, especially from tired feet, from a walk, a run, a cycling event. Like I mentioned before, where folks can go to cool off is really important, to have a seating area. So you want to think about that beforehand. I know it might seem like a no-brainer, but often if you don't have general seating, you could find people leaning on your trucks. Honestly, sometimes sitting in the porta potty, you know, you name it, we've seen it. So you want to make sure that there's areas for people to rest. And then, of course, your food and beverage area, as we know, is very important. So regardless if you have a sponsor for food and water, you want to ensure you have a place to hydrate and refresh before and after the event. This does not mean you have to give everyone a water bottle. This means you can fill a cooler with water and they can self-serve. Or if you do have a great water sponsor that wants to give out individual bottles of water, that's okay too. So speaking of sponsors, you can see on this site plan that there's a sponsor row. So this is a great addition for you as a nonprofit to include in your sponsor package. So the bigger the dollars, maybe more real estate they can have on site. I would always encourage your sponsors to not just have giveaways, but also to create an experience. For instance, we have a chip company, a potato chip company, as one of our sponsors for a bike ride. And rather than just handing out chips or giveaways, they actually create an obstacle course for kids. So what this does, if they create an experience, you want people to stay post your event, enjoy the things that you spent so much time preparing for. So at the end of the day, your participants, your sponsors, volunteers, staff, they have a great experience, and then you can retain them and they become your alumni and they want to come back and do more with your event the next year. So our next S is signage. All right, so once a participant, they arrive at your site, they see how wonderful it's laid out, how will they know where to go? Signage. So you spend all season perfecting your website, your language, your brand. How amazing it is it when they get to your site and see everything life size? So your signage is a visual representation of your event. The more time you put into the design of your signage, the better your event will look. You want them to be transported into the event day and know that this is their event. You want to give plenty of opportunities for photo ops as well, so your participants can share their event experience and look back on that day with a smile, because the memories they make on your event should last all year until the next event. So here are some examples of some signage. So on this slide, it gives you kind of an overview of multiple types of signage. Even in this very busy indoor venue, you can still identify each area. They use signage as directional, informational, brand awareness. You can see tents that have their own size, flag banners, hanging banners, backdrops. They even use the LED screens. No matter how big or small your site is, your signage can really help flow the event. So in this picture, this is more of a storytelling type of signage. So we created a multimedia remembrance pavilion for folks to hear stories of survivors and to honored loved ones. So the signage for this area is obviously the inflatable tent that has the event logo on it, and then the collapsible A-frame in front so people actually know what they're walking up to. So this picture, this signage was used as an indoor stage signage. So as you can see, there's the 4 large easy ups in the background and the lectern sign. So this event was an outdoor event that had an indoor piece to it. So you want your signage obviously to look the same look and feel, but these easy ups are more for indoor. So if you're using A-frames or retractables or any of those things, you want to make sure when you're doing your signage plan that you're getting things for the outside that will stand up on their own. And if it's inside, it can probably be a little more flimsy. But as you can see from this lectern sign, your photographs will always be at a lectern with someone talking, hopefully. And so that's very well photographed. So I always recommend making a very nice lectern sign that has your logo, maybe your presenting sponsor on it, and so on and so forth. So as you can see again, this is a lectern sign. This is something that they just have. This is an event that happens every year. But look at this beautiful hero shot of Billie Dee Williams. You know, she's very into what she was saying. So this is something that they would probably use for advertising their event for the next year, using this in social media posts and so on and so forth. This final one, this is a Northwell event, as you can see. So we have this helium inflatable that we brought to the event this year. So what inflatables do is they really give your event a 3-dimensional feel to it. So this was actually lifted off the ground at the opening ceremonies, and participants were able to sign it during the event and post the event. So it just adds another layer. You can obviously see the inflatable arch behind it, the stage signage, but this just adds another element, another piece. So those were some types of signage. These are others. So obviously if you have a large stage, that's a great place to hang your logo and your mission statement. You can, of course, use the small A-frames as directionals for the porta potties, etc. And obviously, inflatable arches are a great way to have a finish line or a start line. And then you can also see some flag banners, tent signage. And if you have any questions about different types of signage or what would work well for your event, we could talk about that in the Q&A session as well. But as you can see, signage is very important. It transforms those fields, those parking lots, those indoor venues into the look and feel of your event. Our next S stands for staff training. It's very exciting. Events would not be possible, as we know, without our dedicated staff, volunteers, and you. So we know it takes a village to produce an event, and the more preparation you can do beforehand will make it easier for you as an event producer on event day. So what I am showing here on the screen is an operations plan. So like this one, this will help you keep everything on track for your event goals for that day. This one is a rest stop specific, but I would recommend if you do have opening and ceremony site, if you have a rest stop, if there's things that are outside of that main area, that you make individual operations plans for that specific area. Because 9 times out of 10, it'll be different people that are going there. So you want them to be able to focus specifically on their area, but you want everyone to have the overall plan in place. So just kind of going back to a good Broadway show, the actors, stagehands, everybody coming together. You want to make not just an operation schedule, but you also want to have a really good staffing/volunteer plan. So when people get there that day, they know exactly where they're supposed to be. They know exactly how long they're supposed to be there. They know exactly how many people they're supposed to have with them. So this will truly set you up for success. I do recommend having meetings beforehand if you have some volunteer captains, if you have your team leads, even if it's just a phone call, passing along a PDF copy of your event book so they can take a look at it beforehand, and then having an additional staff meeting on site where you give out your event books so they know exactly what to bring with them, rain gear, if they're having walkie-talkies, wear a belt, what other things they need. Always have a Sharpie, just simple things that will make sure that they are not constantly coming to you when you have 1,000 things going on. And so you can truly, as we call it here, just brain dump, get everything out of your head, put it on paper so people have that quick reference. Of course, they can still come to you with questions. It doesn't mean you're taking a nap in the bed of the truck, but it gives them the feel that they know also what's going on. So the last S, which is one of my favorites, is supplies. Here's when it gets fun, for me anyways. I truly love supplies. So you've spent time now, you've made your site plan, you got your staffing plan together, put your operations plan, now you got to get the stuff. So what is that stuff and how do you get it there? So before you start building out your event, you have to make a list of your supplies, right? So what I would recommend, what we do here, is rather than just having a centralized location where all the supplies go on your site, having separate bins for each area. This way, as the event is going, you know exactly that that area has scissors, they have their pens, they have their clipboards, they have their own paper towels, and whatever it is that they need in that area to set them up for success. So what you see on the screen right now, this is a manifest. So we go to do inventory twice a year. So the first step is you go wherever you're housing your supplies. I would recommend, if you don't have them already, is investing in some plastic storage bins, because those obviously can be used year after year, better for weather protection rather than carting things around in boxes. So getting all of your supplies together, counting out what you'll need, and then before the event, going and QCing everything, so quality control, counting everything in those bins and seeing what you need to fill. So once you make your supply plan, you'll have a better idea of how you need to pack your vehicles, what you need, where you need it, the time it needs to get there. So you don't have to think twice about it, so you don't have to touch it twice. So by the time you get to loading your trucks, your staff is happy, everything is packed the way it needs to be, you specifically know where everything is, there are a copy of those manifests in the event book, and off you go to your event. So by the time you get there, everyone knows where the zip ties are to hang your signage, they know where the clippers are to take down your signage, they know where the paper towels are, the tablecloth covers, everything that you would need for your registration area. What do they need? They need power. So you have power strips that are actually already in that bin. You can also have, we have always a general bin as well for extra supplies, but each of those areas should be able to just self-serve. So that really comes to the end of this part of the presentation. This is a staff picture of all of us, because at the end of the day, we work really hard at what we do, and then you guys do too. So as long as your staff and your volunteers and everyone knows what their plans are, they know how to put out those small fires because you planned a spectacular event. Things will always go wrong, as we know, but it's always keeping a level head, keeping calm, applying the 4 S's, and then you'll have an incredible event day. And everybody will want to come back and re-engage and register, and your sponsors will want to reactivate.
Thanks, Sally. Let's switch over now to the handouts, because I know everyone's excited to go through some of those documents that you've put together.
Obviously, this is something that you guys can download post this conversation, but this is something that we used at the peer-to-peer conference, and Joanna and I found that people really gravitated towards it because it's nice to have that takeaway, especially from a presentation like this. I realized that I just, in my way, kind of brain dumped a lot of information on y'all. And to have this quick guide, this doesn't have to be the last conversation, obviously, also that we talk about this kind of stuff. So what we're going to go through in here is looking more in depth into site plans, supply manifests, a timeline, staff and volunteer training, a volunteer plan, and what a good signage plan looks like. So something else that I put into the packet that we handed out to peer-to-peer, which I encourage y'all to do, this is just kind of self-awareness of how you feel your plans are that you've laid out. So just evaluating yourself. What needs work? What are your challenges? What are your successes? To see where maybe you need to focus more people, resources, money. What is lacking that you feel that your event maybe needs a facelift or it needs just some adjustment throughout the season? Because like I said, events are ever breathing, growing, changing. So that means you might need to grow and change. You know, we want to set things into place so everybody enjoys the event and knows where they're going, but there's no reason that things can't grow and change. So I encourage y'all to do the self-evaluation, follow up with us if you have any questions. And I think this is a great starting point. So this is that site plan that we had looked at earlier. Sorry that it's sideways. But you can kind of see where generators are placed, where porta potties are placed, and then I'm going to go away from it. You can see, so Bear Burger was a big sponsor for this event, so they get obviously their own big area. So with food, with something like that, also comes with challenges. So you'll need to probably talk with a fire inspector or a food and beverage inspector just to make sure if you're using propane, if you're using gas, whatever it is, how you're going to cook food, that there generally needs to be a certain amount of space between that and other tents and what parameters that you're going to run into with that. As you can see laid out with this site plan, something really important is that flow of traffic like I talked about. You can see that the porta potties are set back from this, that they are on or close to a walkway, especially if you have any folks that are ADA. So they would need to get into those toilets or wheel in or use a walker to get in there. So you want to make sure that those PJs are very accessible on some sort of walkway, facing that walkway so people can get into them. As you can see also, if you're looking at the site plan in the top left, there's a production tent. So this is something that I would recommend, if you can, just having something set aside for your staff where I said that extra supplies is, where they can keep their bags, where if you have extra tables and chairs, you can hide them behind there just so everything looks buttoned up. I would always recommend that like I said, if you have tables or chairs, making kind of a boneyard for that area during your staff training in the morning after the site is set up, everybody knows where they are, because inevitably there'll be a sponsor to say, hey, we have an extra person, can we have an extra chair? And or if you need to strike any areas after the event starts, that you get it off the field and everything still looks as nice as when you got there. So this is just another event. So that first event that I showed you was in the grass. So this one's on a pier. So you just have another opportunity to use signage, use activations in different areas. You can see that this producer drew this a little differently. So one thing that you'll notice is that previously on this slide, they used Google Earth to draw this. This one they did not. So it looks like they got kind of the architectural CAD drawing, maybe from the venue, and then they drew on top of it. So what each of our event producers here do is they go out to these sites, they take a measuring wheel, they measure out the site so they have the exact size of these tents when they start drawing their plan. So they know exactly what will fit, where it will fit, putting out their generators, putting out their stage, what would make the most sense for people to come in and when they leave. As you can see, this is autism speak, so they obviously a lot of kids having that kid activities area. So we do another event for, it's called Go the Distance for Autism here in New Jersey. And what we do at that site is we kind of fence off with snow fencing the kids area. So it just makes the parents just feel a little safer. There's also a quiet tent, so those kids have some place to go. So really with each venue and each participant type, you're really focusing on what is important. What would make this event stand out? Are you really truly listening to your participants, what they would need, rather than just the same. I mean, it will out of the box, the same model, but how will you customize this event for your particular participants? And also, as you can see in this one, there's a very large sponsor row. So it's just where your sponsors feel like they're being seen, and so on and so forth. I really like the site plan. I think it's laid out beautifully. And then, you know, she had to put a lot of porta potties on there, so figuring out the best way to lay this out and to have the traffic flow. So the next slide here, this is another manifest. As you can see, so like I said, each area should, if you can, and you can afford it, having those plastic storage bins. Like I said, it might be a one-time investment every couple of years if they break or crack or whatever it is. Assigning those bins, putting on there, putting the manifest on top so you know exactly what bin you're going into, putting on with some gaff tape of the name of that bin. As you can see in this particular bin, there are 4 different areas, but because they're so close to each other. So you can do that, you can separate things out that way as well. So it's depending on how, you know, that's why it's always good to make your supply plan before you ever start filling your bins, because you'll want to know how many things you have, what needs to go in what area. Obviously, a pack of rubber bands and 12 pens is not going to take up an entire bin. So really utilizing your resources as best you can. If these tents are close together, awesome, use the same bin. But just making sure that each bin has the exact things that that area will need. Gear check needs those valet tags. Food and beverage obviously needs Clorox wipes. They need food service gloves. So making sure that your manifests are detailed for those specific areas. So this other sideways piece, I'm turning my head. I don't know if you guys are. So this is a rest stop timing. So this will kind of be in conjunction with your operations plans, but this is really for your trucking team. If you have different rest stops out there, or if however your route is set up for your route closure times. So this is really important, especially for your volunteers. So they know exactly, because they'll be the ones generally at those stops. So they'll, even if it's not a race, still trying to enforce a close time to make sure that people get back to the site in time. This can be used really for anything. This can be used for rest stop timing, for if you have a different site, maybe for lunch stop, whatever it is. So having these documents laid out beforehand, actually wrapping your brain around who needs to be there at what time they need to go, what supplies, if you have a convoy, need to go on what truck, first to drop, last to load, things like that. And then just talking about volunteer training and staff training. So the producer on this event, obviously it's for AHA. This event has about, oh my gosh, like 10 to 30,000 people. I know that was very vague. There's a lot. So training the volunteers to understand and the staff to understand when they're going to be coming up for the incentive items. It's more than just, hey, they're coming up for incentive items. So she actually drew this out. So as much as you feel like you might be giving too much information, that's okay. As long as it's, so she put a picture in here, she divided out the section, you can see she used a table. So anyway, if the really important information that y'all want them to see, make it pictures, make it a table. People, as we all know, people don't generally read everything, but if it's really important, just lay that out beautifully so they can see it. Encourage them to read it, go over in the volunteer training, because at a walk like this, or any walk, really, that area gets very crowded, especially if they're coming back to get their t-shirt, if that's the first thing that they get before they go out. So you want to make sure that all of your ducks are in a row with this type of document. So this will also go in their event book. This will be part of the training. People that, if you have time, people that aren't in this area, maybe they don't get this in their event book, but it's always good to arm people with everything, because you never know if someone doesn't show up, if you'll have to switch those staff members out. So I always think it's best practice kind of to give more, just so everyone has a picture of what they need to do. And you can tell people that day, hey, this is your area, so really do concentrate on this area of your book. Like I showed you earlier, this is a volunteer plan. So volunteer plans are truly very helpful with recruiting. So you know how many folks you will really need that day, the timing of that. So if you do have a volunteer coordinator or just a day of coordinator on site, they know how many people they need in that area. Because like that question earlier, if you don't have a staff, if you don't have full-time people that are helping you, how do you get this information across? It's documents like this that you can talk about pre-meeting if you do have those ambassadors or their team leaders. This is just a great way for them to see how many people, what they're going to need to do, and the time they're there. That'll save a lot of questions for y'all of where do I need to go? How long do I really need to stand here? Yes, you do. It's written on this document. That means you have to stand here the whole time. Just kidding. But it will know like when you can break people, and you can kind of talk to your volunteer captains about that stuff. The last piece of this, I believe, is this is a very detailed signage plan. So as you can see, this talks about a lot of different types of signage that you might see on this event. And then this producer laid it out. So you can kind of follow along. So when you get to your site, once again, this is kind of managing the pieces that you're going to handle and then handing off to other folks. They know exactly where to go with what piece of signage so they can get your site set up for you. So rather than you want to always do an initial walkthrough with your entire staff, but then once you separate people out, here's your signage plan, here's the palette with all of the signage on it for these specific areas. Go forth. Here's all the things that you will need. Here's your bin for the signage team that has Velcro and zip ties and zip tie cutters if they put the signs on upside down, or whatever it is, whatever they need for that day. If it's an outdoor event and they need sandbags, they know where that sandbag pallet is. Is there a truck? Is there a gator to get all of these things places so they're not carrying one thing at a time? Pallet jack for the pallets, really thinking through this signage plan, because the faster the signage can go up, the faster you can kind of open your event. So signage can actually really slow you down, or it can set you up for success. And here's my favorite quote: go out into the world and do well, but more importantly, go out into the world and do good. And that's what all of you are doing. Thanks for having me, Joanne and DonorDrive. You guys, I truly appreciate you listening to me. And please do follow up with any questions. And everyone have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Bye.